I'd like to briefly mention that this event is sponsored by the National Foreign Language Resource Center at the University of Hawaii under Title VI funding from the U.S. Department of Education. Liliana, go ahead.
Hello, Stephen. My name is Liliana Lopez. I just want to make sure that everyone can only see my slides right now.
Yes, if my screen is any indication, we are seeing your slides in the smaller panel to the left. They're not covering the whole screen, and that's kind of nice because then we can have our chat window open at the same time.
Okay, so great. So my name is Liliana Lopez, and currently I am the Supervisor of World Languages in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I oversee the Spanish, French, and Chinese languages, grades 3 to 12. Before leaving the classroom, I was a Spanish teacher for 12 years, and I had the opportunity to bring PBL to my classroom and to my students. It transformed my teaching. It engaged students to become passionate learners of a language, and I am excited to share with you today what I've learned, and I look forward to learning from all of you as well as we continue on this PBL journey. In today's webinar, in the next 20 minutes, I will provide examples of authenticity and PBLL, and I will explain what it takes for a project to be authentic. I will also share with you a useful tool developed during the Summer Institute to help support our world language projects. Authenticity is a defining characteristic of project-based language learning because it is especially important in the world language context. Languages live and breathe. They are a tool used to do many things. So when we are helping our learners with a new language, we can go beyond the language forms and functions to help them to develop an authentic understanding of the world by having them use a language in a real way, an authentic way. When addressing the idea of authentic work or authenticity, we must focus on our lives and our students in our and their world. Let's first begin by thinking about the challenges, issues, and problems that are relevant to their lives. What are the issues that are being faced by us, by adults in the world that matter to students? We will begin by brainstorming together using different sources of inspiration. However, first, many might ask the question, what do we mean by authentic? Let's remember yesterday's sharing of the gold standard PBL rubric that was created by BIE, which Lauren shared. And we know a project incorporates best PBL practices when the project has an authentic context, involves real-world tasks, tools, and quality standards, makes a real impact on the world, and/or speaks to students' personal concerns, interests, or identities. Let's take a look at what criteria makes a project authentic. Authentic projects meet a real need in the world beyond the classroom, or the products students create are used by real people. Authentic projects focus on a problem or an issue or a topic that is relevant to students' lives. The more directly, the better, or on a problem or issue that is actually being faced by adults in the world, students will soon enter. Authentic projects set up a scenario or simulation that is realistic, even if it is fictitious. Authentic projects involve tools, tasks, and processes that used by adults in real settings and by professionals in the workplace. Keep these criteria in mind as we begin to view various projects later in today's webinar. It is important to know that there are many blogs that you can read on authenticity, and they are shared at the link that you see on your screen. In particular, this blog is interesting, where John Larmer from the Buck Institute for Education shares his thoughts on what it takes for a project to be authentic. John Larmer describes to us a sliding scale of authenticity. Depending on where you are in your educational context setting and your PBL journey, it is satisfactory to do work that simulates work done in the real world. Let's look at this middle row on the chart. And somewhat authentic means that students are doing work that simulates what happens in the world outside of school. In a project that is somewhat authentic, students could play the role of food critics, architects, nutritionists, or website designers who are placed in a scenario that reflects what might actually occur in the real world. Or students could also create products that are the kinds of products people do use. We could also call them semi-authentic products or projects. However, when thinking about best PBL practices, we want to design projects where students will do work that is real to them, or the work that has a direct impact or use in the real world. The real world can also be school, which is a real place for students, and we can't devalue that. We can't devalue what school is for them because it is real. World language students might advocate for a cause, take an action to improve their community, or support students in improving their target language community. They might perform a service for someone in a target country. They might create a physical artifact to display or distribute or express their own ideas about a topic in various media. Also remember that the process of PBL itself is authentic. Lauren shared with us this same image yesterday. Remember, students are given a problem or task that they then need to work through, much like in the real world. In our lives, we don't get all of the information we need up front, and then we start living. We learn as we go. We do our work as we go. As students move through the project process, they are working collaboratively to answer a question, solve a problem, or create something. We call the final student work the culminating product of a project. When planning a PBL unit, a PBLL unit, or a project, you want to start with what students do or create and ask yourself, how will their product be authentic? First, you might want to think about what real people do on the job and the products they create in the workplace. Consider the professionals we interact with on a needs or daily basis. These are adults in various roles. Think of how their profession relates to authentic tasks or problems. For example, a chef is not going to prepare a brochure for his food patrons, but rather plan menus, present a meal. A writer would write a screenplay. An architect makes blueprint plans and then sells their idea. A healthcare worker gives medical advice. A citizen blogs to the general media or mobilizes others. A consultant gives advice on a specialized topic. These roles that you also see here today and the products are also are based off of the projects that Lauren shared yesterday as well. The food critic, the restaurant will write restaurant reviews. An event planner would host a cultural event, as you can see. In addition, at the following link, there's also a list of authentic products for you to consider when designing your project. Finally, when thinking about culminating products, be sure to consider the proficiency level of your students. This tool is also in the resources link we shared, and I will reshare the link at the end of this webinar. Now let's move on to designing for authenticity. We understand that we now understand authenticity and authentic products. How can we design more authentic projects? Let's go back to our definition for high quality PBL and focus on the important PBL design elements that support designing authentic products. Notice that a challenging problem or question should be open-ended, understandable, and inspiring to students, challenging and aligned to the language targets you have for students. Yesterday, Lauren challenged you to begin to think about your project idea by providing you with many sources of inspiration, such as content standards, your community, and current events. Today, I will share sources of inspiration to support you in thinking about authenticity, specifically for world language students. At the 2014 ACTFL convention, Annie Griffiths shared her images during her keynote speech at ACTFL, where water issues, education issues, and gender issues were highlighted through her photography. We see real-world issues. What are the real-world products students can create to address these issues? Let's take a look at two other sources. The International Baccalaureate, or IB, organization has 6 themes that we can also use as a source of inspiration. The global focus on these themes are a great starting point to help us think about authenticity. The AP College Board themes for world languages provide us various categories to think about authentic problems, challenges, and issues. If we take a look at each of the categories, consider diversity or economic issues in your community, ethical questions in recent world events, and or other themes that you see here in this image that students would easily be engaged to learn more about. Do not be afraid to survey students and get to know what they feel are interesting themes and topics that you can delve deeper into. For world language students, the content itself can lead to an authentic product, and the skills that students develop and use in the PBL process, success skills or 21st century competencies, also beef up the level of authenticity. Remember, our ACTFL standards lead us to authenticity. So hopefully now you have the start of an authentic project idea. I'm going to share a tool to help you ensure that your students are doing authentic work. This product square aligns the purpose of the project to both the product and the problem, question, or challenge. It is necessary that the authentic product created by the student demonstrates their learning and answers or solves the problem, question, or challenge. In turn, the product would help us in deciding what audience would care for the product, helping us with that public product criteria as well, or element. Finally, the product square helps ground our work by having us design a project to support student interest and ensure we answer the question, why would kids care about this project? Let's use the product square to support our design of a project Lauren shared with you yesterday. Lauren shared this example, which comes from a high school level 2 classroom based on a book chapter on technology. Here is our project idea. Students host an open house to present how-tos on technology for parents in the community. Let's use the product square to support our project design. How do we know we're on the right track? Each square is completed with the problem. Does the technology night product shared by all students with their audience answer the question, how does technology help my community? Would the audience care for the technology night? I'm hoping you're answering yes to both of these questions. It was exciting for us over the summer to also see where projects would start and how it would continue to improve after the use of the product square. Here is an example of where the project started with the initial idea of sharing leisure activities in Hawaii and educating the Spanish-speaking world with a media presentation. It was definitely a great starting idea. However, after using the product square, let's see how the project was revised. The product square supported the teacher to confirm his audience would be Spanish-speaking tourists and students who will promote tourism for the island. The teacher also discussed how Spanish tourists could be targeted, changing the product to be culturally relevant to the specific Spanish-speaking tourist group. So he took this idea and ensured that the purpose aligned with the product, ensured that the product and the student work was able to answer the question, how can we educate and encourage Spanish speakers to visit the Big Island of Hawaii? Why would students care about this project? Because students love to share with others what they like to do. They also would help and would also develop a critical understanding of another culture. Let's take a look at another example, a food example. I'm going to share this one and one more. Lauren shared with you this food example yesterday. Students create a campaign to promote healthy eating and fitness within the community. As we can see, the product or the products, because here we have a choice in product, the app, the PSA, the website, the weekly health plan, these products align with the purpose because the project's purpose is to raise awareness about healthy living. The problem, question, or challenge aligns with the product because the products allow for students to demonstrate their learning and answer the question, how can we promote a healthy lifestyle within our community? Here we see our restaurant Cuisine example. Students write restaurant reviews for restaurants in the local community and create a web page to share them with the community. The product square allows us to align the purpose with the product. The purpose of the project is to integrate the Arabic-speaking community and promote restaurants to Arabic speakers. Does a website Culminating product serve the purpose of the project? Yes. Let's take a look at the question. How can we as restaurant goers support the Arabic community in choosing the best restaurant for them? Does the Culminating product allow for students to demonstrate their learning and answer the question? Yes. In closing, authenticity in projects provide students an opportunity to become empowered to affect change in their communities and the world around them. We want our students to solve real problems in the classroom so that they can become citizens who can discuss, analyze, and solve authentic problems. Remember, and Lauren stated this yesterday, use your toolbox. You're not changing the methods that you use. You're just resequencing them to contextualize the learning. You are making the products and the project all contextualized. What you can also see here is at this link, just extra resources to add to your toolbox. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share ideas with you, and please know that Lauren and I can be contacted via Twitter or at our emails, as you can see here. Please keep in touch and let us know. Reach out with any questions, comments.
All right, thank you very much, Liliana, and I'm sure you're standing by to receive some questions from our participants.
Yes.
All right, well, let me have a quick look and see what we come up with. All right, there are quite a few questions, and that's fine because we have enough time to get into a fair amount of discussion. All right, Maria was wondering, is the project decided by the students or is it suggested by the teachers? And if it's decided on by the students and you need to cover some certain curriculum, how do you make those things match up?
It really depends on where you are in your PBL journey. And also, we have schools that are full PBL schools, and so it really depends on your educational context, your setting, where you're at. If this is the first time that you are doing a PBL project, I highly suggest that it is structured and designed by you. As a first project, you're going to have a lot of control over. As students get used to the PBL project, you will be able to allow them to have more voice and choice in the project. But it really depends on where you are in your journey.
Okay, on a related question to this student voice and choice, how many projects would you suggest doing in one school year or maybe in a unit? Is it like you make a transition and your whole program is suddenly PBLL, or how does that work?
No. That's a great question. Once again, it depends where you are in I guess, your world language, where you are with world language, because if you are already doing IPAs, it's an easier transition to move to PBL projects if you have the IPAs already in place. However, I would suggest doing one project your first year. There's many teachers who do 2 projects. It really depends on the length of the projects, but during a typical school year, you will probably do 4 to 6 PBL projects, and it really just depends on how comfortable you are facilitating the projects.
All right. I think some of our teachers will be relieved to know that they can sort of approach this by baby steps.
Absolutely.
All right. I'd like to remind everyone that you can see at the lower right, or it may be on a different place on your screen depending what kind of computer you are using, but there's an icon that looks like a bar graph, and that's a poll that we would like you to please answer and submit for evaluating this session. And let's continue with the Q&A. Once again, this question came up yesterday, but maybe you can give us your feelings about it. How about students' language use while doing the project? Is it necessary to require students to use the target language all the way through?
So when your project is authentic, your students are going to crave the target language. Like, they're going to want to learn as much as possible. I believe that our world language students are passionate learners of a language when the topic is interesting to them and when they want to learn more. So they will love to use the language in context and group work and pairs, and that's where you put up the sentence starters, the sentence frames, the anchor charts, so that collaboration, they will pick up language through collaboration and through different protocols and processes throughout the project. It is possible, it's just you have to scaffold it and be prepared. Like when it's time to work in partners, what is the language that they're going to need to use to work in partners? And you would have that available for them on an anchor chart. So it's easily accessible and they could use. It's amazing the language that they pick up when the project is scaffolded, when the language is scaffolded. And it's important to do as a teacher to be prepared for that.
Great. A lot of the projects the ideas that were presented have the word website or app as a possible student product. What age is that geared toward? How do students have access to that technology? And what are options for those who don't have technology? This question comes from Anna.
Okay. So that also depends on your educational setting. An elementary school student can create an app, but it depends on is your district a BYOD district? Is it like, does it start in 4th grade? Like it really depends on your district culture. There are schools that do have computers in every classroom and have the tech teacher in the classroom. So it really depends. It depends on what you're comfortable with doing with your students.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's really no prescribed requirement that you use technology. Any number of possibilities are there for you to what are some examples of non-technology-based products that you have seen in language applications of project-based learning?
Okay. You can always use anything within the school to help that's not technology. For example, you can do a museum exhibit in your library. You can share your book products that you create with your students at an exhibition night with parents. I mean, it doesn't have to be only with technology. And when we say like a public product, it also doesn't have to be a product that is shared with hundreds of people. Experts can be invited or the audience can be invited into the classroom, and the audience can be 3 target language speakers that you know are parents. I mean, it really depends on, once again, if your project is going to be semi-authentic or truly authentic, but there are products that are not technology driven.
So perhaps one example, you talked about technology night. Of course, that integrates technology, but the event itself is not technology-based. It's a real gathering of real people that you invite in.
Yes.
Performance and art display, those are all possibilities.
Perfect. Yeah, an exhibition. And when I say an exhibition night, it could be a museum where the students are more like curators of work and share, their what they created, sharing their books, their final products, their calendars. I've seen that. So it's like it doesn't have to be technology.
Okay. We have several questions regarding the state of the field in project-based learning, language learning specifically. For example, are there PBLL textbooks, or is there a lot of research comparing PBLL to other approaches in language instruction? Can you make some remarks on the state of the field?
So it was great to spend our time in the summer together with a group of teacher experts and just really PBL enthusiasts across the country. It is for PBLL. It is, I would say, more. It's a newer field. However, as what the NFLRC has done is create a rubric that will help us with with project-based language learning, and think about how language falls within project-based learning. So I'm sorry, the question, it is a new field, and what I want teachers to realize is that there are elements that we as teachers must ensure that a project has, and it doesn't always have to be like authentic for everything, or we're going to always push you that way. But teachers, you went to school for a long time to learn about great language teaching, and we have the opportunity to use the elements and make our classroom what's best for our students. So these elements that we have in place, there's no book, there's no textbook. The elements that we have in place are the elements that help us be designers of a project. And that's what I want teachers to know, that we can do this.
Again, as yesterday, I think a lot of people have concerns about the use of language. How do you make the learners able to use language at the level of sophistication that a project seems to demand? And I think one way to illuminate that might be to cite an example of a PBLL, a project that's designed for really beginning learners. How can a project be adapted to that stage of very low proficiency?
I'm sorry, Stephen, how can a project?
People are, still worried about the idea of using this PBLL model with beginning language learners. So I think one element is the sophistication of the language that's required, and the other is spending time in the target language and making input comprehensible. So those aspects, how do you address them when you're trying to do a project with very beginning language learners?
Okay, so I immediately think about like a food project or our food chapter, let's say. I think we have to take like a step back even before the project and think about our mindset, the way like teachers are trained, where we say we are going to cover the food chapter for 3 weeks. And at the end, the kids, after they received everything, that they're going to be able to create this food project. What we want to do is let the students know from the beginning that they're going to be a part of this project, and they're going to be able from the beginning really acquire the language that they want to learn so that they could be able to be successful for the project. And this is going to take perhaps a little bit longer than when you used to cover projects, cover a chapter, just because we flip things doesn't mean the students, it's the natural acquisition of language that happens in your classroom. It's just that now from the beginning, the students know what's going to be expected of them at the end.
I see.
So,
and I think the student knowledge about the final project, that motivation that they get when you've put that challenge before them to create that final product, I think the motivation must be a really strong factor, because that keeps them on task, that keeps them learning, right? So isn't motivation one really big difference between PBLL and other approaches?
We do it in front of our peers, and we ensure that it's a high quality work. Imagine taking it outside of the classroom for our students. I mean, they are so motivated to do the best that they possibly can with the project.
All right. Thanks very much, Liliana. I think Lauren is online there too. Lauren, is there anything that you would like to offer before we switch over to our next presenter, Janice?
I'm sure. I can just, can you hear me? Because I don't know about my connection.
Yes, the audio is good. Go ahead.
So it's a common question about PBL with novice learners. So Liliana shared a document about different products that students can do depending on their level. So one project that my students always liked that I would do with my real novice learners is that they would create a packet to welcome ESL students. We had a large Haitian population in the community. So when I taught French, they would create a packet to welcome these French-speaking students. And it would include a map of the school that they had labeled in French. And so if you think about what novice learners can do, they can label things, they can write a list, and then they took them around the school and named the different parts of the school. So you have to really think about, okay, what are the language functions that I need to get my novice learners to do, and then how can that translate into a product? And there's a document in that folder that we shared that can help you with that.
Thanks very much, Lauren. And now I think it's time for us to move on to our next presentation.